At Kaboom Fireworks, we love family, freedom, and fireworks. On top of our rock bottom prices, we have Black Cat, Brothers, Sky Bacon, Fox, Takeo, and others, with everything from sparklers, parachutes, and snakes to fountains and cakes. Did we mention finales? Up to 1,000 grams. There's something for everyone at Kaboom Fireworks, with the best selection at the most affordable prices, where we cherish family, freedom, and fireworks. Open daily through July 4th, located downtown Wachir. The Delta Fireman's Ball is Saturday, July 27th. You can enjoy food, live music, games, and more. There will be a poker run from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Keith Davis will be playing music from 6 to 9 p.m. For more information on the Delta Fireman's Ball, contact Jim or Fake Harry at 319-212-8772. The Delta Fireman's Ball is coming up Saturday, July 27th. Don't miss it. The Keokuk County Expo in Sigourney, Iowa is the place to be this 4th of July, as they'll be hosting their annual 4th of July Truck and Tractor Pull, starting at 6:30 p.m. in conjunction with ECI Pullers Association and Twin States Pulling Association, powered by Champion Seed. And as always, there will be fireworks at dark. Spend your 4th of July evening in Sigourney, Iowa at the Keokuk County Expo with the Truck and Tractor Pull at 6:30. Hope to see you there. Welcome in. We are live from Smoky Row in downtown Oskaloosa on what's been a stormy Tuesday night so far here in southeast Iowa. It looks like things are going to be clearing off a little bit, but some area flooding going on, so be careful and safe out and about in our viewing area. It is time for the Tuesday Night Tune-Up, TNT. Again, we are live as always from Smoky Row in Oskaloosa, and let's take it to Safe and Curtis, who are standing by. Guys.
Turn around, do not drown.
Exactly.
Right? Remember that?
I do, and that's actually pretty sage advice for the weather. Of
that's
the last
safe
2 or 3
advice from Safe.
Ooh. A safe PSA.
Yes.
If we could start that up, I mean, state of Iowa, like send the check this way. We'll make it happen here. So
I don't see anything that could stop it at this point. This is amazing.
So I don't either. So anyway, welcome back, folks, to the TNT, the Tuesday Night Tune-Up. I'm Safe Grafke. That's Curtis Vanderwall. We have a ton of guests here tonight on our 4th of July extravaganza week here, and we'll be right back after these messages from our partners.
All right. Thank you, Safe. And yes, we are looking at our sponsors right now. That includes Milo's Tree Service. You can contact Chris Minner at 641-683-2627. We've also got the likes of Sinclair Napa and Sigourney, moving into a brand new location at the old Dollar General location, so be on the lookout for that. We also thank James Family Greenhouse and Produce. They are along East Jackson in Sigourney. We thank Christy Tarr, American Family Insurance in Oskaloosa, for being one of our sponsors, as well as that Sigourney Trio, Sigourney Body Shop with Tony and Yvonne Pitch. We also thank CJ at Sigourney Motors and Zeb at Sigourney Tree Care. All these fine folks making our broadcast possible on this Tuesday night. We've got, as we mentioned, a full lineup tonight, and we've got a full screen right now. You guys jammed into that table. Who you got with us, Safe? Who you got?
Holy cow, welcome back, race fans. What an exciting night we have here on TNT, the Tuesday Night Tune-Up. First off, this young man has been racing in this area for a long time. His family has a lot of tradition.
He used the term young. I love that.
I like it.
That's awesome.
He is still a young man.
I haven't been ID'd in a while.
Well, that's okay. Hey, nothing's wrong with that.
Yeah, whatever it takes, right? Everybody gets older.
He's actually 19.
Yeah, had 20 years of that. Yeah, he just looks a couple of decades.
So, no, we have Kyle Harwood with us here tonight with Kyle Harwood Racing. So,
well, let's take a step back. We're going to do things a little different tonight.
Yes, it's very different. I'm sorry.
It up with the holiday week.
We did, yes.
We have no racing at Oskaloosa tomorrow night.
Correct.
So that's going to be different. Plus, instead of where we focus a little bit on the results and such, we're gonna switch it up, and we're gonna have 2 guests tonight to try to just a little bit different format and see how that goes for us. So
So
we're
please
gonna
let us
start
know
off-
if you like that.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to start off with Kyle. Let him tell his story and get everybody out in the audience to know him a little bit better, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, Kyle, why don't you tell us about, growing up, what got you into racing, and all the way up to right now with you running a sport mod at the Southern Iowa Speedway.
Yeah, sure. So that's going to date back as we were doing some I graduated from Oskaloosa High, so doing some Oski math there real quick.
That's hard to
About, I don't know, 30 years of racing or so. So probably my dad would be the one that got me into racing the most, obviously, that's probably a very common story, but
I think it is. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm shocked your dad Roy got you into racing.
Yeah.
And I can remember getting into a vehicle, and we went to the Hooters 500 in Atlanta in 1992.
Whoa.
They took us down there, which for those NASCAR historians that are listening,
That was still
that was
the
a big
oval.
year. It was still the oval, but
Yeah.
if you remember what happened that year, Alan Kawicki won the championship that year.
Yes.
So I still have the
And
tickets to that.
Came in the race third in points, if my historian mind is
I
correct.
wasn't even born yet, so
In it was the Busch series back then. Were also V6.
Yep.
I can remember that. We stopped at Talladega,
Yep.
saw the museum.
And maybe, it's pretty. The Underbird came out on top. That was that October, November
It was in-
'92.
it was like a
I don't know why you
November
keep
race.
looking at me. I have no clue. I should
Yeah.
just be out
Anyway.
of
I
this.
figured
I'm
you
just
were
gonna
the
step off to the
encyclopedia
side real quick.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first thing I remember. Then and locally we'd go to Rayos Speedway. I remember going out there once in a while, and then my uncles Jim and Joe Durian ran the track for a long time, and kind of its heyday, if you want to call it that. And Dad would take us out there, and we'd sit in the stands, and there'd be 100 and some cars in 3 classes back then. A lot going on back then, and then roughly the year 2000 2001. If you remember Josh Newell, who raced for a long time here as well.
Absolutely.
He got into stock car racing. We bought a go-kart from him. That was a four-stroke go-kart. And we ran Junior 2 at Newton, which still has a go-kart track now. We did that for a year. Then we decided to upgrade, and we got a 2-stroke go-kart, spec limited car, and ran at Newton and had a lot of good success there. We won several mains up there, and we ran with Stephen Blattler, if you remember him. He used to run
Absolutely.
modifieds out
Yep.
here a long time. So, and then also Dylan Van Wyk, who runs a sport mod, his dad Mark was in that, and J.R. Wolver. It was quite the feature of people that were there, and there's still a lot of guys that race today that came out of kind of that class at Newton.
I'm trying to imagine
That's pretty-
what
that is
that would
pretty
be
cool.
like watching, and that would be pretty
Absolutely
insane.
amazing.
That'd
I think
be-
is really the only 2 words you could
It was
use.
a fun.
I mean, it
You knew
just-
when the
yeah.
spec limited race was happening because everybody would pile around the fence at that
I
place
can
because
only
there was
imagine.
I can't wait
there was
to see
15
what's
or
gonna
18
happen.
points because something was going to go down. Something was going to happen. But then we kind of all graduated from that, and we ran stock cars, and we went through a myriad of sanctioning bodies when we first started. That's where, because Zach Vanderbeek also ran a 4-stroke go-kart at Newton too, but he's a little bit older than I am, and he got the 33 in the stock car. So we bought a stock car first from Joe Ferguson. He had an old backup car back in the day when Ron Verbeek and Brian Matrician ran. He had a 3rd car, and we ended up buying that car from him, and that was our first stock car. Well, I was 33 in the go-kart, but back in those days, there were so many cars, you needed to buy your number. Well, Zach was already 33, so then here comes the 15, right? Well, we got a modified, but if you remember in the early 2000s, there was a guy that had been racing modifieds for a long time in the area that was number 15. Do you remember that person, Safe? From the Albia area?
I potentially think he has a fabricating company.
He
May have
kind
had a
of-
brother.
yeah.
May have ran a
Oh.
Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some times. So
Won a few races.
yeah.
Several hundred, I think.
somewhat successful.
yeah.
Some people might
Tim
say.
Folkers.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be,
he's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So.
what I'm trying to wrap my head is how hard it had to be for you to pick a number. Because
Well-
it's like a great driver, and then it's like, what do you do?
So I guess everybody has their own way they pick numbers. So we got our first big car when I was 15. So that's where the 15 came from. Tim had that number, so I went with 15K for Kyle.
Oh, okay.
But then at that time, Donnie Schatz wasn't Donnie Schatz of how everybody knows him now. He still drove for his dad, and he got second in the Nationals. And I really liked that, So me and Dad started out. Now, obviously, when you say Donnie Schatz's name, this day and age, there's a lot of opinions because he's won so much. But back then, it was just some guy from North Dakota that came down and kind of put it on the Outlaws that one year, if anybody remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
But-
Very well.
So anyway, that was the early 2000s, and it was still IMCA sanctioned. Jim and Joe had gotten out of the promoting ranks, and Bill McCroskey was actually the promoter at that time.
Yeah.
So I know we're going back. That would have been 2002 or so. But it was IMCA then, and we ran that stock car, and we had a rude awakening on how good everybody was at Oskaloosa and where we kind of stacked up. We were definitely, if there was 30 cars there, we were 15th to 25th, somewhere in there, just trying
Depending on the night, right?
Just depending on the night, because obviously a stock car with the group of people that ran there, I mean, you had Pinkertons and Vanderbilt, the whole host of characters that dominated there for so many years. Bobby Griner, I remember running with him, Bobby Griner Jr., and all the guys that came down from Des Moines, and it was a blast to learn, and it was fun to learn from. Well, then fast forward a couple years, we got into USRA, if you remember that time span, and there was no such thing as a B mod or a sport mod. However, the stock cars, they kind of maintained, well, everybody called them the big carburetors or the big engines and all that, and Oski still had a lot more banking back then. So if you're new to coming out to Southern Iowa Speedway, it looks a lot different than what I remember running in the early 2000s, but back then the stock cars ran a big a big 500 two-barrel, and we ran 396s and 418s, and they were 400 and some horse at the wheels, and you would fly around there because you had way more engine than you had chassis and tire, and you pedaled it, and it was a really good time for a long time. And then we ran a USRA A mod, which was basically USMTS at that point at Oskaloosa, and then they started the B mod back then. Now, we didn't run B mods because we just had A mods and the open stock cars. Well, then in 2012, so in 2011 we won several races at Oskaloosa in the USRA stock car, and then 2012 came along, and that's when they went back to IMCA. So then at that very moment, literally every engine, chassis, all the parts that I had in our race shop immediately became illegal. And
Unless you wanted to
tough.
drive several hours
right,
to run
unless we
another
would drive
track.
several hours. And at that point, I was going to get married, and we thought, well, since we were going to have to reinvent literally everything we owned, maybe now's a good time to step away. We did actually win a couple races in 2012 running the little tiny carburetor on the stock car, which in today's world would not happen. There's just no way that's happening. So we won a couple races with that. Still have all those engines sitting on engine stands. We never sold them because, like we just mentioned, who's going to buy
Right.
Who's going to buy a 434 with shaft rockers anymore?
Yeah, not a huge market for that.
Not a huge
Safe,
market for that.
Safe says he
The
wants
guy
one.
that when he ran a hobby stock.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think you'd have enough carburetor to feed that.
That'll
thing,
be
but-
okay.
But so then anyway, took 10 years off. The kids are here with us now. I'm married, 2 kids, Henry and Oliver and Amanda. And we started kicking the idea around. I told Dad, I'm like, I got a text message from Shane Paris, who is in Eastern Iowa. He lives in Muscatine. He runs a
I know
sport
Shane.
mod.
Yep.
And he was going to go to an open engine, and he texted me and said, hey, would you want to buy a crate for a sport mod? Why don't you put one of your old modifieds together? And I was like, this might not be that bad of an idea, famous last words. So we pulled out
looked
that
good
old
on
Harris-
paper.
Right. So we bought this crate engine that had like 25 nights on it, and I got a 4-barrel for it, and drugged the Harris out and called Mark Elliott up and said, hey, can you put the 2-link under this thing? And that was like 4 years ago.
Did
Off
he
we
laugh?
went. No, he did
Okay,
it
that's
for us.
good.
He did it for us, and we,
That's awesome.
we did all that, and boy, was it slow. So I was like, well, all right, this is going to take a lot more than this. So then that is when I first met Andy Eckrich up at Precision Performance. And I called Andy and I'm like, look, I bet you're busy with, anything besides what I'm going to ask you to do, but I really need help putting this thing at least so I don't feel like I'm going to head straight into the fence every time I turn the wheel to the left. And he said, sure. So we drugged that thing up there, and he tore the whole front end off that car, put new upper and lower control arms, redid the whole geometry, reset the rear end. We moved weight. We did a bunch of other stuff, and lo and behold, we started running, and I was able to get into tech every week at Oskaloosa in this old 2007 Harris, which I know you've been fond of those older Harrises.
Yep, absolutely.
So it drove fine. We were actually finally got the car working good enough. We were leading the fair race a few years ago, and the thing blew up going into turn one.
Shoot.
So at that point, I decided, all right, we either are going to get serious about this or a little more serious, or we're going to hang it up again. Well, I wasn't quite ready to hang it up, so John Davis, who sponsored the track for years at Midstate Machine, builds engines out of Des Moines, he wanted to get out of racing. He ran an A-mod for a long time, and he had a Rage with like 35 nights on it, was it. So I called him up because I really wanted to figure out how much an open engine was going to be, because if you're running out at the Southern Iowa Speedway in a sport mod and you're going to want to be somewhere in the top 5, you probably better have an open engine installed in that thing. But you don't have to have them. It seemed like that was the path we wanted to take. So John Davis called him up. Yep, I can get you an open engine, but hey, by the way, I want to get out of racing. Would you be interested in this Rage? And I'm like, and at that point, I didn't really know much about any of the chassis other than that seemed like a pretty good idea. So I said, sure, let me take a look at it. So that fall, which would have been fall of 2022, I bought that Rage, and I bought an open engine. So I took it back up to Precision Performance, and Andy did his stuff. We put the rear end in it. He built some shocks. And here we started fresh last year in 2023 with that Rage car with a new open engine. Well, what we started with and what we ended with, we now have a different rear end in it. It was way faster than our blue car that we had. It just wasn't, you have to be really good at Oskaloosa to beat like this guy and Carter and Bray and Logan and anybody that races up there, Dylan when he shows up, all the guys that come and race, like you have to be on your A game. It's not like you're on your B game and you accidentally get second. That's just not how it works, right? So we were good at Columbus Junction, we were good at Bloomfield, we won at Eldon, but we were just a little bit off at Oski. So over the winter, took another stab at it. We put a new rear end under it. We tried a bunch of different things, and it was better right out of the gate, and we've been tuning on it, and we got it to the point where it's about the best it's been since I've owned the car. The engine's running really good. The driver is getting better. You know, I run like 1 week out of like one time a week, where some of those guys run, I'd hate to guess, 50, 60 nights a year probably, some of the posse that we hang out with.
I think you're right. I think a lot of those guys do get 50, 60 nights in pretty quick, and if you're running one night, you know, maybe you get 15 or 18, maybe 20. Yeah, you know, so
exactly right.
It makes a big difference. So take us back. So you kind of started in the, you know, kind of the what a lot of people talk about is the heyday of the Southern Iowa Speedway. You were kind of at the tail end of that, with the Durians promoting and stuff like that. Take us and just let the folks at home know what exactly makes racing today so much more involved as far as the amount of work that you have to do in between races compared to what you were able to do then. I've heard stories, and I helped some guys back then that, you know, their idea of getting ready for the next race was changing the gear. Yeah. Quite frankly.
Right.
And obviously that there's just no possible way that you could do anything remotely close to that. So let the folks at home know briefly, if you can, just kind of how that's so much different in a roughly 20-year time span.
So this will be my version of it, and I'm sure people could argue one way or the other, but I look at it almost the same way as the Cup Series, because back in the heyday, let's call it, you heard stories about guys that had $2,000-$3,000 in an engine. They basically changed the lifters and the cam, and they were being competitive, right? So in that time span then, you usually had way more engine and power than you had car. Because even though the engines were cheaper, you could, with the way the rules had you boxed in, you could still build a good enough engine that you would not be able to hook the whole thing up. So that's how you could get through with that. The tires, they're about the same as what they are now, but in today's age, because what I learned back then has no bearing on anything. Like, if you're going to be a Monday morning bench racer, like, well, back in 2005, we used to do blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yep, I used to do that too, and it doesn't work at all right now.
That's right. That's right.
So, like, now, even like with the Cup Series, they used to have 950 horse, and now they've got 600 horse. And they've got bigger tires. So the cars today handle so much better than anything I ever drove back then, that, in my opinion, the cars are so good, and there's just not the same amount of horsepower to where everything on the car has to be perfect. So now I spend, I bet the better part of 4 to 5 hours. I ended up buying a Tire Demon just because it was taking so much time of tire work. That's what hits the road, right? Load sticks. I have a load stick now, and I'm writing all the data. I've got spreadsheets and binders of what the car did every time we make an adjustment. I go and I write it down. We measure bar angles. I have setup plates we put the car on. So then every week we write down exactly what we did. I kind of give it a grade on if it was tight on throttle, if it was loose on throttle, if it was able to turn in, if it arced to the center good, once it got on the bars, would it drive off the corner? Would it not drive off the corner? Was it understeering? What did it do in the heat? Was it bottoming the frame out? Like blah, 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 right? And you just keep your notebook going, because now I'm getting to the point where I'm changing like 4 degrees of bar angle, or I'm maybe moving the rear end a little bit, or I need to put a half a turn here, or you put in 20 pounds there. Because like when that one night you ended up winning, we led the whole race basically. And then about 5 laps to go, as I was getting into 3, the car all of a sudden started getting tight towards the end of the race as the fuel was going off, or if the tires were starting to wear out. And I'm like, why is this thing getting so tight? And I probably lost a couple tenths a lap, but it was enough that you ended up, like, when he caught me, he blew by me by like a half a straightaway, because the difference was just that much. But the car had changed probably 2 or 4 tenths a lap in those 10 laps before lap 14 or whatever, if that makes sense. So what can I do to make the car maybe a little freer at the beginning to be better at the end? Shocks. Like, I never in a million years, like, if you were to rewind the clock to 2004, there was no such thing as a load stick, right?
Yeah,
maybe there was, but I wasn't
doubt it.
using it.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
Would you agree with some of that?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I think you hit the nail on the head. It used to be a deal. A guy would check the bolts maybe and change the oil every few nights and would put the right gear in. There was no tire work. There was no, some guys didn't even scale. I remember
Right.
working with
Yeah.
one guy
We got scales
that put
too,
a socket under the rear end and jacked the car up and measured how much higher one side was than the other. That's how he measured his wedge, or his bite in the car. So yeah, that's a pretty good synopsis, I think, behind the scenes of exactly what goes into the racing program today versus back then.
And speaking of today versus back then and everything, real quick, I want to take a pause here and just think about, while Kyle's been talking, that he literally talked there about his history of racing and name dropped some of the greatest drivers, car owners, engine builders, promoters that are from this area. And if you really look back at the history from around here, it is just crazy to think, because your uncles, the Durians, Jim and Joe, I mean, some of the greatest race engines built, and 2 of some of the best promoters.
Yeah,
no
doubt.
It's just crazy that in this show, it's great to hear the history, because we are so lucky and we've been so blessed in this area to have some of the best. And we have your boys right here. Why don't you guys come on over real quick? We have the next generation here too with their dad, and so it's just really exciting to see that history. And now we have the growth and your 2 boys. What do you guys like most about going to the track on Wednesday night with your dad?
Him winning.
Good answer.
Absolutely, Victor.
Winning
Lane
is always the right answer.
That's right. It's never not good.
It's never not good.
Are you guys both going to want to race?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Bad question, I
No.
guess. So, no, just absolutely fantastic. And Kyle, you and your whole family have been, I would almost say at this point, kind of a tradition. Your roots are so deeply embedded in racing at the Southern Iowa Speedway, and just really in Southeast Iowa as a whole. It's just absolutely amazing.
And not just Kyle, right? I mean,
Right.
It's the whole family, right? Did you had a sister that ran for a
Liz,
while,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and obviously, your dad's a big part of it, and your mom, always. But before I ran the dirt track stuff, and I would just
My
go watch
grandma's
on
always
Wednesday
there.
night. Yeah, I'd see them in the grandstands all the time, and it's just it literally is a living history moment when you can kind of talk about that stuff, and you just start to compile it, like you say, Safe, and it's a pretty impressive deal.
It is. It's absolutely amazing, Kyle. So, we're excited to see how the rest of your year goes, and in the years future, however long you decide, and for your two boys here to get into racing and see what happens. And I just your dad Roy is hilarious to be around.
He's hilarious. Yeah.
Anytime you can get around Roy, I highly suggest it. And if you have any Brock Purdy playing cards, he
Yeah.
will buy them.
Right.
So
right.
I
He's
didn't
a
know
big
your
Iowa
dad was
State
such
fan.
I did not
He
realize
graduated
that.
from Iowa State, so he earned being a Cyclone fan. For sure.
I would
you go.
say so. And your wife Amanda over here. I mean, just a lot of fun here tonight for us. Anytime we can get families involved and then hear this history, it's just great. So, Kyle, we want to thank you for
Yeah, no problem.
coming on and talking with us tonight and giving us some good race history, because it's always a nice reminder of where our sport's been and to where it is now.
That's right. It's pretty awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Alrighty, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back up with Robbie and Tanner Wilson here in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
All righty. Thank you, Safe. And thanks to Kyle Harwood and family for hanging out this evening here on the Tuesday night tune-up. Again, we're live here at Smoky Row in Oskaloosa on a Tuesday evening, as we are every Tuesday through at least mid-August. So we thank all of our sponsors for making things possible. That includes Milo's Tree Service. We also send a big thanks to Sinclair Napa. We've got James Family Greenhouse as one of our sponsors. Christy Tarr at American Family Insurance, one of our sponsors. We've got Sigourney Body Shop on board as a big
guys
supporter,
in the
as is Sigourney Motors and then Sigourney Tree Cares. So all of our sponsors making our broadcast possible each and every Tuesday night here on TNT. I'm going to adjust my camera just a hair before we take it back. There we go. Now we've got a live
Full
shot.
table.
We've got a full table.
I don't know if we could get much more full of this. So waving goodbye to Kyle and his family. So again, we want to thank them for coming here tonight. We're really excited now. Another fantastic interview for all of you tonight. We have Tanner and Robbie Wilson with us, guys. Thanks for making the drive from Albia in the amazing rain that we've had here tonight. So, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your racing background and where we're at today with Wilson Racing.
So we grew up, at the track every Wednesday night. We'd be with our dad, sitting up in the stands, same spot every week. You had to have that one spot. But I was working overnights one night at the hospital in Ottumwa, and I was like, I was looking at sport compacts, and I had seen one. There was two of them for sale. One had a cage in it, looked pretty rough. The other one needed a cage. So I went home, and I was like, there's no way Tanner's going to go for this. But I'm like, hey, Tanner, here's two race cars. Let's do it. And he was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, you can take the one that needs a cage. I'll take the other one.
That's kind of you, first off.
And I was like, so I knew that if I didn't do it that route, might not have happened.
Smart man.
And so we went through, and he got his cage in. It took like 3 cars to get mine done. And he got his cage, and I was like, yeah, looks 10 times better than what I got in mine. I ended up scrapping that car and got a different one built. And then, so we raced for like maybe 2 years.
Yeah, kind of off and on for 2 years, maybe hitting every other week, kind of that kind of thing. So,
I don't even think I finished a race the first 2 years.
yeah, the first 1 or 2 years we had overall pretty good equipment, but we couldn't figure out how to get it reliable. Well, I would say so.
Yeah. I think I went through an engine almost every night. But
That's a tough class.
Yeah.
That's
no
a
doubt,
tough,
no doubt.
especially with those eco-techs.
Yeah.
Just tough.
Robbie, I remember the first time seeing you at the track in the pits was helping Roger
Yep.
Kelderman
Yep.
out with his stock cars. Where does that kind of fit into that whole
So that
scheme
actually,
of things?
so that was, I was still in high school, and I was just thinking one day, I was like, I really want to get into racing, but like I don't have like the knowledge or anything. And so I ended up just sending him a message on Facebook one day. I was like, hey, I'm still in school, I want to learn. I was like, is there any way I could come help you? And he was like, yeah, that'd be fine. Whoever likes racing can't be too bad. And so I ended up helping him, and then Tanner started coming over and helping.
Wow, that's pretty crazy because you look at it, if anyone watching has any knowledge of Roger Kelderman and the drivers that have ran for him, the cars that he's had, it's some of the best that we've had around here.
Yeah, no doubt about that at all. So definitely lucky for you guys to kind of be involved at that level, and then that kind of led into your own race. And how many years did you guys do the Sport Compact stuff?
Not very long.
I want to say
maybe like-
2 or 3, and then you had that like additional year from what I did. But
And was that the year that you won at Oski in the Sport
Yeah.
Compact? Yeah. Okay.
The first night out in that car, I ended up winning. So, and then I was like, I got third the next night in it because it was like, I think USMTS was there, and then I think it was the Caleb race right after that.
Yes.
And then I ended up getting third, and then I posted on Facebook, just threw it out there, see if anyone wanted to like trade for hobby stock. Well, Trent Orwig got a hold of me, and he's like, hey, we could do this. And I was like, are you sure? So I ended up trading that Cobalt for a roller hobby stock, the one I'm running now. So
That's pretty crazy. And, Tanner, with you, you're in a stock car now. How did we get to that path of you getting a stock car and how that program?
So I think after the compacts, I kind of had a moment. I was working third shift at a factory, and I was like, man, like I want to do more than what the compact was offering. So the guy that actually built our compact cages, he had a stock car and he was looking to get rid of it. So ended up getting that, and kind of during that time that he was putting his hobby stock together, I got the stock car and I was doing the same thing. So.
And you two are both running arguably, I would say, the two toughest classes. I'm not knocking sport mods at all, so don't take it that way, Curtis.
Yeah,
please.
no.
But I
you're
mean,
not wrong. I
literally,
mean, they're all super good. But
They are.
I mean, if you had to say, what two classes get the most cars, and I don't think the competition is necessarily any stronger in one or the other, but they definitely have the highest car counts on average, I think. So I think you're exactly right. And Tanner, you've kind of taken this year off with getting torn up at the end or middle of last year, and then with the new addition to your family. So you've kind of taken this year off, but hopefully we'll be back in the game in the coming years. Is that still kind of the plan?
Yeah, so kind of after last year, I kind of got everything to put the car back together, and then found out my wife was pregnant. So at that time, I was like, I kind of want to do some house renovation, stuff like that. So I spent all winter doing that, and I still have the car. I haven't sold it or anything, but I think for next year, especially with, as you said, a new baby, I think I'm going to end up getting into a hobby stock. I think it'd be really fun to race with Robbie on the track and ultimately be
Oh,
just
that could lead to some really, really interesting Thanksgiving dinners. I hope you guys realize that.
We'll be the show for 10th.
I wouldn't knock yourself that hard.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Guys, talk just a little bit, if you will, about we just had your dad's memorial race last week, and I hate that I was traveling for work and had to miss it, but just give you kind of gave a little bit of glimpse, Robbie, into who Gary was, and I got to know him when you guys kind of started doing business with us, and obviously quickly became more than just business and customer, but he always has had a super special place in my heart, and I just loved to be around him. He just was no nonsense guy, but talk about how big a fan he was, if you would. You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but if you would go a little deeper into that so that you can give everybody at home a little bit of a idea.
So he would be, if you weren't ready when he got off work, you were going to get left at home.
The car was leaving.
I never tested it because I was scared. But, he, no matter what, even if it was super cold, he's like, make sure you guys take your coats. We ain't leaving. And so we'd set up. We would always put a tarp up. That helped a little bit. But when he, started getting sick, you weren't going to keep him away from the track. So when COVID first happened, there was a USMTS show at Stewart, and I had said something to him about it, and he was like, your siblings are going to be mad if you take me. I'm like, well, whatever you want to do, Dad. And so I took him, and my sister started calling. So we literally have to walk all the way back to the car, get in the car so they didn't hear we were there. And so
The truth comes out.
yeah, I don't think they're watching, but but no, he was always.
I remember sitting in the car, like pouring down rain. They hadn't canceled races several occasions. We
Yeah.
would sit at the track until they absolutely called that, hey, we're not having races. But
And it was, he was one of the first guys in the gate.
Had to be the first one.
Yeah, and had the exact same spot every week, and the same group of people that sat around you, and it really almost is like a whole other family, right? It's who you experience that whole other thing, and that's what he really enjoyed to do, on the nights that there were races. It was pretty amazing to hear him talk about that, and then obviously you guys. Went to different tracks and did that sort of stuff. But I think it's really cool what you guys do with his memorial race, and you kind of partner up and you find some extra sponsors to kind of help out and increase the purse a little bit. And the Fair Board does the same thing, and they bring the late models in. And I think it's just a really cool tie-in and an awesome tribute to an awesome man. So
I don't think there's a better way that we'd be able to keep him going. And
Absolutely.
especially late models. He loved late
Oh
models.
man,
Yeah, he did.
no doubt about it. Yeah, so that's good. So what with Tanner kind of being by the sidelines and having a new little one at home, you've got some race shop help and maybe some track help too. What are your while he's giving you a hand? What's your plans for the rest of the year race wise?
So I know obviously finish out Oski. I really want to go give Columbus Junction a shot, and I want to go give Lee County a shot too. But I know, obviously Fall Challenge. Memphis and Bloomfield have some 2-day shows coming up too. I really liked Memphis when I went down there. I didn't have the best look at Bloomfield, but I'd like to.
You
give
were
them a
running
shot,
good though,
too.
and I think that's something that I've seen in you is just in both of you. Last year with Tanner and you, the last couple years, just consistently getting better all the time. So
Yeah, guys. Again, having your dad's memorial race last week. Why don't you take us through what that was like for both of you guys? That was the second year of it. What was it? What was it just like for you two being at the track and just going through the whole night in your guys' head?
So for me, the second time, like this year, was a little bit harder than last year. You know, I think last year there was just, I had more stuff like I could block it out better. But this year, it was a lot harder for me personally.
I think for me it was great. I could kind of really take the night and appreciate what it was. Like I didn't have to worry about, hey, I got to get in the car for my heat race and worry about my performance for it. But yeah, it's great to see all the cars, the late models there, and really, especially even during the late model kind of feature, I was thinking about how like my dad would have enjoyed it, but just an overall great way to kind of pay tribute to him. So.
Yeah, it is. I'm excited for you guys to do that, and I think it's cool that your whole family kind of comes together to help pull that off and everything. It's a sure a neat deal, and you know, hey man, we look for lots of success out of you guys coming up here in the rest of this year, and then get you both on the track next year, and onward and upward. I think it's going to be exciting. I know. We obviously have a vested interest in how you guys do, being pretty close with you. So I know that I'm excited for that. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Curtis could have said that any better than what I could. I mean, again, it's just the point tonight is family is in racing, racing is in family. When you start, it's contagious, but the love for the sport from the families is awesome. You guys are again embedded in the racing family down here. Your dad will forever hold a special spot in all of our hearts, and you know, we just hope that every year we get to continue doing the Gary Wilson Memorial for your guys' dad. It's an amazing night. You know, I got to go and Shrekker, our big wrecker from work, and seeing all the people in the stands really made me think of your dad a lot and how proud he was of you guys last week and putting that together. So
yep, he definitely enjoyed that and had a big grin on his face from up above. I know that much. That's pretty awesome, and kudos to you guys and your family for making that a priority and making the time to do that. We're all busy and we all have a lot of things going on, but you know, kudos to you guys for that.
So, all right, folks, that's going to wrap up our fantastic interview segment here on TNT, the Tuesday Night Tune-Up. We'll be back with the juice in just a few minutes.
All righty. And again, we do thank our sponsors, as always, for making our broadcast possible every Tuesday night. We are live from Smoky Row in Oskaloosa. Sponsors include Milo's Tree Service. We also thank Sinclair Napa. A big thanks to James Family Greenhouse, as well as Christy Tarr, American Family Insurance. We have Sigourney Body Shop as one of our sponsors, as is Sigourney Motors and Sigourney Tree Care. Lots of Sigourney folks, lots of great sponsors on board for our Tuesday night tune-up. And Safe, I know you're always in charge of things, and I know you're on top of things, but
Woo!
we got to pick my winner.
I know. Yeah.
I have to adjust my camera here, too. There we go.
Jeez, I'm blaming you for this. I mean, this is your giveaway thing.
You want me to announce the prize winner now?
Yeah, do it.
All right,
Here
all
we
right.
go.
I feel like you're
Hit next,
mad.
our ticket giveaway. No, I'm not mad. I could be. Not as mad as like Ross Chastain or Kyle Busch over the weekend. We'll get to that in a few seconds here.
So let's draw our winner. Again, if you're a fan of Steve Shuttler Media on Facebook, we have been doing giveaways, ticket giveaways for the Southern Iowa Speedway. Tickets are courtesy of the guy on the left-hand side of your screen there.
I'm
Curtis
kidding, I'm kidding.
Vanderwall, Vans Racing, hooks us up with some tickets to use as giveaways. And out of everybody who did that magic combination of liking and sharing from my page, Sheila, I'm gonna butcher her last name.
I already did.
Sheila, it looks, I want to say Beheimer?
I think you're right.
Beheimer? I'm going with Beheimer.
Yeah, there we go.
Or
Sheila.
Or Something like that. So Sheila is our winner. Sheila, I have sent you a message. So you can pick up your tickets here at Smoky Row in Oskaloosa. Congratulations to Sheila. I believe we'll be doing another giveaway next week. So be watching here on Steve Shetler Media Facebook.
I was thinking there was a singer name with her name Sheila, and I realized I was thinking of Shakira. Big difference.
That's
Just a little bit.
That's a little bit of a
an
difference
insight
there.
into the mind of Safe right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's
Nothing
that's-
gets by me.
That's pretty amazing. So
Absolutely.
tell me, we're getting down to the end.
Getting down to the nitty gritty.
The now infamous juice. Mm-hmm. What do you got for us this week, buddy?
Boy, I think the first thing to start out with is the World of Outlaws kind of just told everyone this week, hey, you know what? If you don't want to run with us this weekend, that's fine. You just go run wherever your little heart's desire.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but so they did say that they gave everybody basically a 1 week pass.
Yep.
But don't they have a big hole in their schedule to kind of allow these guys to go run this other stuff? I don't think they have anything scheduled on purpose this weekend.
No, they were. So normally this weekend is when they do that big deal at Cedar Lake, and they get the sprint cars and the late models together.
Okay.
And then there was a whole kibosh on that. But yeah, they've changed some things, but it's just very unlike the Outlaws to all of a sudden say like, yeah, this is a free pass week. Normally they just kind of let the teams have just downtime instead and regroup.
And for the
changed
folks
it.
at home that don't know what the deal is, if you are a platinum World of Outlaws team, right, that gets you certain perks during the year, extra pay, free pit passes, all that
Tires,
stuff. But you're limited on how many races you can run
Outside of the tour.
with a sanctioning body other than the World of Outlaws. So you're limited to what, half a dozen, 5 or 6, give or take?
6.
Okay. So they've basically waived that now for this week so that those teams, if they choose to, they can compete the tail end of Pennsylvania Speed Week. What do we got? Maybe some
High
IRA
Limits.
stuff. Is High Limit running this weekend somewhere? I was
90%
thinking that they had it off as well. And then you've got some MOA wing sprint car stuff, and then
Or
of
they
course
could even,
Knoxville on
Knoxville.
Saturday.
Yep. I'm assuming a lot of those guys will. I'm not trying to say that I saw anything when I was through there over the weekend, and I'll be
But-
through there tomorrow, but there's going to be some heavy hitters at Knoxville this
Yeah,
weekend.
there's a few outlaw teams that are based in that general area.
Yeah, I
so-
did see one car, the driver's name might rhyme with Parson Calito.
That's another insight, folks, right there. So,
So-
he's one in a million. So what? So that's interesting. Do
Yeah.
you think that this is maybe a shift in the outlaw stance, and maybe by next year they'll allow more guys to
I think they're going to have to.
do more things? Because that's kind of a thing. High limits
I know.
places no restrictions on their guys. They say whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. We're going to have these races, and we want you to be part of it, but we're not going to keep you from doing anything else. And the Outlaws have traditionally not taken that stance. And that's kind of what the Outlaws were founded on. You knew you were going to get Steve Kinzer, Rick Ferkel, Sammy Swindell, Doug Wolfgang, all those guys with the Outlaw deal when Ted Johnson started that in the 70s and through the early 80s and until it kind of really got on its feet. So that's kind of interesting because that's one of the hallmarks that the Outlaws were really formed on.
Right, and right how you say there, it's a hallmark that they're founded on, but like we've been talking about forever, the cars have changed over here, the driving styles have changed over here. These sanctioning bodies are going to have to start changing, and I think the high limits put the pressure on everyone to show, we're going to let you guys do whatever you want. Here's our payouts.
Yeah.
Here's what we're doing. If you want to be part of it, you're going to be
Yeah.
part of it. If you don't want to, whatever. They are showing, though, that they still get the same cars. They have just as good, if not better, races.
I think you could argue that. Absolutely.
And it's the way that things are going. You can't. I think the problem with the Outlaws are they're so stuck in the past and they're not willing to move that this is what's going to happen. And I hope this week these guys all decide to go somewhere else and race, because I think it's really going to show the Outlaws as a whole, like, these guys are going other places. And the thing is, like the high limits guys, when they go other places, those tracks are talking, hey, we have a high limit driver here. Yeah, it happens with the Outlaws too, but it's not as often. It's good promotion for the Outlaws too. They're really doing a good job, kind of like NASCAR, in giving black eyes out. I think everything is so stuck in the past, and where we're at now, it just has to change.
Yeah, and it's funny you would mention NASCAR in that, and I know I've kind of expressed my opinions. I would actually argue that the exact opposite is true for NASCAR. NASCAR has abandoned its past, and whether that be the racetracks or the style of cars or just the diehard fans like my dad. He was a very, very big fan of NASCAR for 30 or 40 years, and now I don't even know that he watches the races anymore because the product is so bad on the racetrack. And it's I think that Kyle Larson, though, has done a really good job, almost single-handedly, of bringing that grassroots fan back to NASCAR a little bit, and then crossing over into the Indy cars and the dirt late models, the sprint cars, all that stuff. So, but I think you're right. Back to the World of Outlaws deal, letting their guys basically have a hall pass for the week, right? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because I'm with you. I think that high limits caused them to raise their purses this year, and I think it's caused them to revisit this and take a real hard look at it. So this could be some of the winds of change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, some other things we have going on in the motorsport world, we don't get to necessarily talk about drag racing a lot, but John Force had a very scary accident. They have, at first there really wasn't any info. Everyone just knew he had wrecked really bad. He was in an ICU, and then it's like, what's going on with John? What's going on with John?
They've been tight-lipped, and that's
it's scary because
for me as a fan, that's extremely scary. You're right.
It is.
You're right. That lack of information. I kind of take it back a little bit similarly to when Ryan Newman crashed at the Daytona 500, and there was just literally a complete lack of information for a week or more period. And now here we are a week and a half after a forced crash in Virginia, and obviously he missed last week and he's still in the hospital, but
he's showing some signs finally.
Well, supposedly, but what I go back to in the back of my mind is, how odd is it for John Force to have not done an interview? The man is probably, other than driving the funny car, he's most and best well known for his unbelievable interviews. So not to not have him talk really concerns me, that there is some pretty severe, from what I can gather and the people that I've talked to, some pretty severe head trauma that's involved here. And I obviously, all our best wishes and thoughts and prayers are out to John Force and the Force family and team. But at the same time, it's a bad. I don't think it's a good situation.
No.
Now, hopefully, it ends up good.
Absolutely. And again, prayers. And we're thinking of John and Courtney and Brittany and John's wife right now. I can't imagine how stressful that has to be, because they're, with no information. I'm sure they're getting hounded all the time for stuff. And probably the same goes for a lot of those teams too, so that it's just a rough time in the drag racing world right now. We're going to talk a little bit about NASCAR, not necessarily anyone's favorite subject right now, because they're, again, NASCAR changing, and I could go down a really deep rabbit's hole with that one. I'm sure Curtis could too, but we're not going to do that to Steve tonight. I think it would probably end badly. But we had the race at Nashville over the weekend. Again, came down to like quadruple overtime.
Yeah, 4 or 5
overtimes.
And I was listening to it at the shop, and then on my way home from the shop, and I got home and I said, holy mackerel, we got to turn this race back on. You know, she's like, Gina said, I thought that was going to be over at, 6 or 6:30, and here we are at almost 8 o'clock, still running with the rain delay and everything. So
you had Denny and Kyle still going at it, mainly Denny after Kyle, which is no surprise there. And then Kyle tried to retaliate and accidentally took out the Watermelon Man in the process. So Ross was a little upset, I think.
which is interesting, as many people as he's run into. But I get it, right?
Yep.
It's you know.
But it's part of the racing, and I think that's the biggest issue with these next-gen cars is you literally either have to punt someone or you have to get them aerodynamically unstable to where that car jiggles to really, truly get by them and then drive away.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that the new car is just as quite frankly just is horrible, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's only really good on drafting type tracks where the draft plays such a big role in it. Intermediate tracks, I haven't been really wowed. Darlington was a good race. Iowa was a pretty good race, but other than that,
There's nothing really to Loudon was an absolute letdown.
right.
If it weren't for the rain, that race, I mean, I didn't watch it until I heard that there was a chance of rain there. I'm like, you know what? This actually might be kind of interesting. And then it was interesting.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. It
yeah,
was.
Christopher Bell having the Lee Kyle by himself and Spencer around over the weekend. So just, again, NASCAR is, and I mean, just a lot going on there. Kyle Busch having an absolutely horrible season. I don't know if there's anything that team could do to salvage any dignity at all. Really, at this point, maybe one win, but
Yeah, and I don't know. It's weird. It seems like they have the speed at times, and then something dumb happens. Whether Kyle does something that's maybe not the best, or the team has an issue on pit road, or just bad luck, or whatever. And it's confusing. You know, they came out of the box last year and won a couple races right off the bat, and now. Here for the last month and a half, they've really been on the downhill. So
absolutely. So again, so that's really all I have for the juice. I think the biggest thing was the World Outlaw topic, which is I think a really good talking point, and it's just going to be interesting to see what happens with that whole organization between the late model side, the sprint car side, and then even the super dirt car side with the
East Coast
mods.
the East Coast Dirt Modified. So I think you're right. It's times are changing, and that's not always good and it's not always bad. We'll just have to see how it shakes out.
Absolutely. So real quick, here's your safe tip for the week since it is the 4th of July.
Safe's safety tip.
Safe's safety tip. If you have a firework and you light the fuse and it doesn't go kaboom, don't be stupid and put your face directly over it and go, oh, this must be a dud. Just a really good safety tip. I think,
He's pretty unbelievable, folks. That's he does. He speaks.
Well, I'm not wrong.
But no, not at all. Not at all. But in all seriousness,
yes, all seriousness.
Obviously, we want everybody to celebrate the 4th of July. It's a wonderful holiday here in the United States, and
that's why we get to talk about dirt track.
Yeah,
if
you're going to partake in some racing activities, you're going to partake in some fireworks or both, or parties or whatever. Just obviously, we want everybody to be safe and have a great time, and then we can come back next week and get ready for the Southern Iowa Speedway to ramp back up.
Yeah, and again, racing. If you want really close, Knoxville races this weekend again. I've seen the Roth Enterprise trailer there.
Yes.
Parson Colito is going to be there.
He's going to have a T-shirt with that on it now. That's going to be so awesome.
I'll get a text Phil after this and tell him that.
Yeah,
so.
You got to do that. So Knoxville could be really amazing Saturday night. I know, again, weather may be a little sketchy as we lead into the weekend here, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday got plenty of stock car, modified hobby stock, 4-cylinder action happening at the area tracks, and then we get into the middle of July and we start getting into fair races and that sort of stuff. So it's going to be exciting final month of the Southern Iowa Speedway point season, and then then we're the big tours with the World of Outlaws and High Limit are into the Month of Money and all that stuff. So I mean, it's coming on quick. So
Getting good. So anyway, race fans, and again, we want to congratulate Shakira on winning the tickets. Or no, I'm sorry. What's her name again? Go ahead and announce Sheila. And Steve can butcher your last name again if he wants.
No, I'm good.
Okay, Sheila, not Shakira. That'd be cool if Shakira won tickets and then came to the Southern Iowa Speedway.
she's got to watch every week. Come on, right?
Big fan.
Yeah,
Big
huge fan.
She's always sending me messages.
Yes.
You know what?
Yes.
I think we could get her as the Grand Marshal or something for a race. I mean,
Say
we
if
could have her the
you-
honorary flag woman.
Shakira,
Reach out.
you get that handled, okay, man?
If
With
I
all
do,
your contacts.
oh man, you would owe me a lot if I could get that one pulled off.
But
So
it would
Steve.
just add to the legend that is Safe Crafty.
Hey guys, before we get out of here, we do want to congratulate. We want to wish a happy birthday to the King, Richard Petty, who is 87 years old today.
Does not look
So,
a day over
Richard-
60.
Oh!
Well, I mean,
Time out. Speaking of birthdays, someone has one this Saturday, and he doesn't show his face on camera in here.
Who could that be spectacled?
Pete
Young
Lettler
man be.
is the name that
Lettler.
that it rhymes with.
This is
Now that's got to go on a T-shirt.
This is also T-shirt material. We gotta
have
do
a
that.
whole
Well,
line of
happy
new
birthday
merchandise coming
this
out.
Saturday, Steve.
thank you.
Probably edging up on your 40th or so, right?
Oh, yes. I'll hold steady at 39 for a while.
39 and holding. I love it.